The holiday season is upon us, and that means lots of parties and lots of get-togethers. In today's video, I'm going to share 5 different appetizers that you could make to bring to your next party or get-together. We are going to be making cracker party sandwiches. And for this recipe, we are going to need some buttery round crackers like Ritz cracker or Walmart's buttery rounds. You're going to need cheese. You can either use Swiss or I'm using provolone. Either of those will work great. You're going to need ham, Black Forest, regular ham. You want the regular deli sliced ham, nothing too thin. You're going to need unsalted butter, Dijon mustard, Worcestershire sauce, everything bagel seasoning, or you could also use poppy seeds as well. And we're going to need garlic powder. We're going to want to preheat our oven to 350. And then you're going to want a baking sheet, and you're going to want to cover it with either parchment paper, or if you have the silicone mats, those will work as well. What we're going to do is we're going to take our crackers and we're going to put the top side and put them down so we can start assembling our sandwiches. You're going to want to make about 24 of these. I mean, you can make as many or as little as you'd like. All of our crackers ready to go. So we're going to prepare our cheese and our ham. Now, I did say not to buy thin sliced, and I didn't realize this one was thin sliced. So I am just going to double mine up. Now, you can use a knife to do this, or if you happen to have some cutters, I had grabbed these at Walmart for another project. So the smallest one I think will be great to cut the cheese, at least to put on the crackers. So I'm just going to try to make as many of these little round pieces of cheese as I can. Again, you don't need to do this. You can certainly just cut them even into little squares if you wanted, because you will end up with little extra pieces of cheese. And I'm going to do the same with my ham. And again, you can just take the ham that you already have and probably just cut it in half and then just fold it. Or if you have the regular sliced ham, which is what you should have, you can fold it as well. You do not need to do what I'm doing. So then what you're going to do is you're just going to come over and put your cheese down. And I'm going to just take the ones that were pieces, because I'm not going to waste it, and it's all just going to melt anyway. And we can still use those as well. And then you're just going to put your ham right on top. So here we have all of our crackers already. And as you can see, I made some with just the scraps. So they don't need to be perfect. They're going to be covered with another cracker. You're not going to see them once they're all melted together anyway. So you can do this either way, where you use a cookie cutter or a round cutter, or you can just use scraps. I'm going to just come in and brush a little Dijon mustard on each one of these. The original recipe calls for using a pepper jelly, but I decided to use the Dijon mustard instead. Not only does it help keep the cracker kind of cemented down to the toppings, but it just gives it some extra flavor when it cooks in the oven. There is Dijon mustard also used on the topping with the butter, but it still just gives it that little bit of extra flavor. So we have 2 tablespoons of unsalted melted butter. Then we are going to take 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard. We are going to take 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. We're going to take 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. And we are going to take a half a teaspoon of everything bagel seasoning. And then we're going to just mix this all up really good. We're going to take our other half of our crackers and we're going to put them on the top of each piece of ham so we can work on finishing our sandwiches. And now we are going to take our butter mixture. We're just going to brush this over the top of all of our crackers. These into the oven. And we are going to cook these for 10 to 12 minutes until the tops are golden brown. And here are our finished appetizers, ready to be eaten by our guests. We're going to be making Kielbasa Bites. And obviously the first ingredient you're going to need is kielbasa. I am going to say that I'm making a half recipe compared to what is in my description box. The recipe that's listed below calls for 2 to 3 pounds of kielbasa. Now, of course, most stores do not carry a full pound anymore because of shrinkflation and all that great stuff nowadays. So this package is 14 ounces. You're also going to need grape jelly. You're going to need barbecue sauce, garlic powder, onion powder, Worcestershire sauce, and you're also going to need chili sauce. Now, my family does not care for chili sauce, so I'm omitting it from this particular recipe, but do note that it is included in the ingredients in the recipe listed below. The first things I'm going to do is spray the inside of my crock pot, just so that this doesn't stick and become a nasty mess later on. Some people also use the bags. I've not had much luck with those, so I tend to not use them, but you do want to have something in it to keep this from being a giant mess. Next up, I'm going to cut my kielbasa into bite-sized pieces. You don't want them to be too small, but you also don't want them to be too big. So we're going to take the kielbasa and get this into our slow cooker. So next up, we're going to make our sauce. We're going to use a half a cup of barbecue sauce. We're going to use half a cup of grape jelly. We are going to use 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Some people say Worcestershire. I think Worcestershire is the correct term. So we use 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. We're going to use half a teaspoon of garlic powder. And we're going to use half a teaspoon of onion powder. And then we're going to whisk this all up really good. I'm going to set this on high for 2 hours. There we go. We are going to pour our mixture in. And then we're going to just stir this in really good so everything gets good and covered. It already smells so good and it's not even cooking yet. So now that that is all set, I'm going to put the cover on it. I am going to come back over the next 2 hours and stir it every so often just to make sure there's certain areas that are cooking evenly. But it's a nice prep and then set and forget. And here is the final appetizer. You can choose to put it in a bowl or a platter, or you could leave it right in your crock pot and set it on warm. So I'm going to be making cheesy chicken bites. And for this, we are going to need a package of crescent rolls. We are going to need chicken. It can be canned chicken. It can be chicken breast, any type of chicken, rotisserie chicken that you have at home that might already be cooked up, whatever's easy for you. We need chicken, and we are also going to, of course, need cheese. I am using some Mexican blend cheese, but any type of cheese, mozzarella, cheddar would work. I'm also going to be making some variations of these. I'm going to make just a plain chicken and cheese. Then I'm also going to make one with Dijon mustard, and I'm going to make a third kind with barbecue sauce. You could use buffalo sauce. You could use any type of sauce or seasoning that you'd like to customize these the way that you might like. So you're going to set your oven to 375. That's the first thing we're going to do. Is let your oven preheat. I'm going to open up my crescent rolls and just roll these out. And what I want to do is I want this to be one sheet. I don't want them to be the triangles because we're not making crescent rolls. I'm going to end up cutting these into squares. So I'm just going to get rid of the perforated lines. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to cut these and make them into squares. So I think the easiest way to do this, you could certainly use a knife, but I'm going to actually use a pizza cutter because I find it's a little easier for me anyway. Cut my squares. Feel free to use a knife, whatever works for you. And these are what are going to be our little squares that go into our muffin tin. So I ended up with 24 squares. I did have to take a few that were on the larger side and just put them with the smaller one. But I was able to make 24 of these. And I have a 24 cup muffin tin. So I'm going to spray all of these with oil. I'm using avocado oil. You can use whatever you have at home. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to take our squares and put them inside the tin here. We're going to fill them with our fillings. So I have all my muffin tins filled with my little squares and rectangles. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to, some that are going to be barbecue sauce, some that are going to be honey mustard sauce, and then we're going to do some that are just going to be plain. So I'm going to just take a little bit of barbecue sauce in each one of these on this side. And then I'm going to take some chicken. And just like a spoonful is probably good for each one of these. And then what I'm going to do is add the cheese. I'm going to add some Dijon mustard. Be able to do 2 rows of each. And we're just going to do the same steps that we did before, where we add some chicken and some cheese. And then just going to do the same thing, a pinch of cheese to each one of these. I'm going to put just chicken and cheese, but I am going to add a little seasoning to it. So I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder to each of these, just so it has something. I'm also going to add a little bit of onion powder, just a little bit to give it some extra flavor. But I use chopped up onion. You could use minced garlic if you wanted to. You could get I'm going to set my timer to 12 minutes and I will just keep an eye on them. These are all done. Oh gosh, they smell so good. And we have our barbecue. And here we have the finished cheesy chicken bites that you can serve up for your guests to enjoy. We are making pizza roll-ups. Now, these are very customizable, so just because this is what I have does not mean this is what you need to have. So the first thing you're going to need is at least 1 or 2 rolls of crescent dough. You're going to need marinara, pizza sauce, pasta sauce, whatever you choose. You don't have to put sauce in it. I am choosing to put sauce in mine. You're going to need string cheese, mozzarella, pepperoni, or other assorted toppings that you'd like to put inside. For the top of it, we're going to use some salted butter, some minced garlic, some Parmesan cheese, and some Italian seasoning. We are going to set the oven for 375 to get this preheated while we work on getting our crescent stuffed. So I've taken my crescent rolls out of the tube. And with this recipe, we are going to use the triangles just as they come. I've taken 8 of my cheese sticks and I have already taken them out of the packaging just to get myself all set here. So I am going to add some garlic powder and just put a little bit down. Now, you don't have to use powders. You can certainly use real garlic, minced garlic you could have cooked up, or some really small pieces of onion. Then I'm going to put down my tomato sauce. I'm just doing a very thin layer because I don't want it to squeeze out all over the place when I roll this up. I'm going to put down some pepperoni. Again, you could use any toppings that you choose. And then I'm going to put my cheese and I'm going to roll this up. And I'm just going to repeat this process for all of them. I'm going to get 3 tablespoons of butter going because I'm going to start making the butter and garlic topping. Once the butter has fully melted, I'm going to just add in a little bit of minced garlic. You can add as little or as much as you want. I'm using jarred garlic, but you could certainly use fresh as well. Just going to cook this for a few minutes. And then we're going to brush this onto the top of our crescent rolls. I'm going to brush this onto the top of our pizza roll-ups. Italian seasoning. And I wish I could have had some fresh Parmesan cheese, but unfortunately everywhere I went to get some was out, so I'm having to use the grated Parmesan in a jar. Not my first choice, but sometimes you can't find your ingredients and you have to improvise. And then I'm going to pop this in the oven and I'm going to cook this for 9 to 12 minutes. I went through and I tucked all of the ends around so most of the cheese would not squeeze out. I did end up trimming the sticks because they were a little too long. And here are our finished pizza roll-ups. I've included a small container of the pizza sauce in the middle that is warm so people can dunk their pizza roll-ups inside and enjoy a nice warm appetizer. So we're going to be making salami and cheese pinwheels. Now, you can use any deli meat to make this. It does not have to be salami. You could use turkey, you could use chicken, you could use ham, you could use roast beef. There are so many different deli meats that you could use for this recipe. So for my recipe, I am using salami, I'm using cheese. I find the shredded cheese just works a little bit better with spreading it out instead of using sliced cheese, which will make it hard to roll up, and you'll see what I mean later on. Dijon mustard, just to give it some extra flavor, and of course, a can of crescent rolls. Now, instead of crescent rolls, if you can find the pizza dough in the can, that may work even better. But unfortunately, I could not find pizza dough anywhere in a can, so I am using crescent rolls. You're going to want to get your oven preheating to 375. Now the pizza dough is obviously a lot easier because it is one uniform sheet instead of all of the perforated lines here, but this will still work just fine. I'm just going to come in and remove the cut marks from the triangles to making crescent rolls, and I'm just going to take a rolling pin to just help smooth it out a little bit more and make it more uniform. Because right now it is a little wonky shaped. And I wish I could have found the pizza dough ones, but unfortunately, everybody is, I think, hoarding them for the holiday season. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put down some Dijon mustard. And I'm going to you could also use yellow mustard as well. It does not have to be Dijon mustard. I just find it gives it just a little bit more flavor. Next, I'm going to take the salami. I'm going to come in and spread the cheese. And what I meant earlier about the shredded cheese being easier is if you use sliced cheese, it's going to be very hard to roll this up. If you want to put any seasonings inside, you certainly can. Now I'm going to come in here and roll this up as carefully as I can. And then what I'm going to do is just try to come in and pinch the seam here, so it's one giant log. And slice these so that they are somewhat round. A knife. And here we have them ready to go into the oven. And here are our salami and cheese pinwheels. You could serve these whole, or you could even cut them in half. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I hope you will consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. And as always, my friends, stay safe and be well.